The smell of motor oil still clung to my hands as I pulled into my driveway after a 12-hour shift at the shop. My back ached, my mind buzzed, but there was one thing that could always recharge me: the sight of my 1967 Camaro SS sitting in the garage like a sleeping legend. That car wasn't just metal and paint. It was 18 months of scraped knuckles, late nights, and a promise I'd made to myself after the divorce, that I could rebuild something beautiful from wreckage. I hit the garage remote. The old door groaned open, and sunlight spilled across the hood. The paint shimmered like molten copper, deep enough to drown in. Every reflection told a story. The weekend spent sanding rust, the first time the rebuilt 350 engine roared back to life, the moment I realized this car was my therapy. I leaned against the doorframe, just breathing it in. Willowbrook Estates was quiet that evening, the kind of suburb where lawns looked cloned and neighbors waved without meaning it. I'd only lived there 6 months, still the new guy, still the mechanic who worked with his hands instead of spreadsheets. But I liked the peace, the hum of sprinklers, the smell of cut grass. For the first time in a long while, I felt at ease. I walked closer, keys in hand, admiring the chrome trim catching the sunset. The world shrank to the sound of my footsteps on the driveway and the soft tick of cooling metal. Then a voice sliced through the calm. "Someone call 911!" I froze. She's screaming, I thought. At me? I turned toward the sound. My neighbor, Brenda Wilson, the HOA president, was storming across her perfect lawn, phone to her ear, eyes wild. "There's a man stealing my car right now," she shouted. My brain stuttered. I was standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys in front of my own house. "What car?" I asked, dumbfounded. "That one?" She pointed at my Camaro, trembling with outrage. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, growing louder by the second. The quiet suburb I'd hoped would be peaceful had just turned into a battleground, and I hadn't even started the engine yet. I couldn't move. It felt like time had jammed in the gears. Brenda stood at the edge of my driveway, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. Her blonde bob glowed under the porch lights, but her expression was pure fury. "Yes, officer, he's right here," she said, pacing, her voice trembling with fake panic. "He's a black man, early 40s, stealing my new Camaro." My heartbeat slammed in my ears. I opened my mouth, then shut it again. "Because what do you even say when your neighbor calls the cops on you for owning your own car?" "Ma'am," I started, forcing calm into my voice, "this is my house. My car, my keys. You've made a mistake." She didn't even blink. "Don't you dare come closer." "I already sent them your plate number." Her plate number. My stomach turned cold. She'd been watching, probably memorized it weeks ago. I could already hear the sirens, echoing through the cul-de-sac like a warning. Kids' bikes lay abandoned on the lawns, and curtains twitched in nearby windows. The neighborhood grapevine was about to get a front-row seat to my humiliation. I looked down at my hands, still greasy from work, and realized how bad this would look. Grease under my nails. Dark skin. Late evening. Expensive car. Suburbia doesn't give benefit of the doubt. It gives suspicion. The first patrol car skidded to a stop in front of my driveway, blue lights flashing against the Camaro's chrome. 2 officers jumped out, hands hovering near their holsters. "Sir! Step away from the vehicle!" The words hit like a punch. My throat tightened. "Officers," I said carefully, raising both hands. "I live here." "This is my car," Brenda shouted over me. "He's lying." "I just bought that Camaro. It was supposed to be delivered next week." The older officer, Rodriguez, his badge read, shot her a look, then turned back to me. "Can you provide identification, sir?" "Yes, sir." "Wallet's in my back pocket," I said, keeping my movements slow. My pulse thudded like a drumbeat. I handed over my ID, my voice steady but shaking inside. "Marcus Rodriguez, homeowner, mechanic. That car's been mine for 18 months. He glanced at my license, then at the car, then at me. The younger officer, Morgan, started circling the Camaro like he was inspecting evidence. Brenda marched closer, phone still pressed to her ear. "You're making a mistake. I have photos of it on my phone. Proof it's mine." Rodriguez frowned. "Photos of a car don't prove ownership, ma'am," she faltered, then lifted her chin defiantly. "I paid $45,000 for it." "From who?" he asked. She hesitated. I could see the cracks forming in her story. I exhaled slowly. Officer, if you give me 1 minute, I can show you everything. Build photos, receipts, DMV registration, VIN numbers. You'll see the car hasn't moved from this address in over a year. Rodriguez nodded. All right, show me. As I led him toward the garage, Brenda's voice turned shrill behind us. He's lying. He's trying to scam you. The flashing lights reflected off the Camaro's paint like fire, and I realized something. This wasn't about a car anymore. It was about power, and Brenda had just declared war. The officer followed me into the garage, his flashlight beam cutting across chrome, wrenches, and toolboxes that gleamed like soldiers standing at attention. Every inch of that space screamed authenticity. My space, my work, my life. I grabbed the thick binder sitting on my workbench. It was old school. Plastic sleeves filled with receipts, DMV documents, and printed photos of the Camaro's resurrection. I flipped it open, my hands steady but my heart racing. Here, I said, sliding it toward him. This is 18 months of work. Engine rebuild, paint job, insurance photos, registration, all in my name. Officer Rodriguez took his time. He studied the photos, me sanding down the rusted frame, priming panels, tightening bolts with my dad's old wrench. Then he turned to the registration, tracing the VIN number with his flashlight. He nodded slightly. Looks solid. Meanwhile, Officer Morgan was outside with Brenda, who was now pacing in circles, her voice carrying into the night. He forged everything. I wired money for that exact Camaro. The dealer said it was being shipped. Rodriguez stepped outside, holding the binder. Ma'am, this vehicle's registration and insurance have been valid under Mr. Rodriguez's name for over a year. The VIN matches. Do you have a bill of sale? Brenda froze. It's processing, she stammered. These things take time. Her certainty was slipping. I could see it in the twitch of her jaw, the quick glance toward the neighbors gathering at their windows. The show she'd started was beginning to turn against her. Rodriguez's tone stayed calm but firm. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious offense. I suggest you step back and let us conclude this properly. The younger officer looked uneasy now. Everything checks out, sir, he said quietly to his partner. Rodriguez turned to me. Apologies for the misunderstanding, Mr. Rodriguez. You're free to go about your evening. I nodded, swallowing a mix of anger and relief. Appreciate it, officer. Brenda wasn't done. You can't just let him. He's dangerous. Look at him. Rodriguez's patience snapped just slightly. Ma'am, I am looking at him. And what I see is a man standing in his own driveway. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The flashing lights dimmed as the officers left. For a moment, I thought it was over, but as Brenda turned back toward her house, I saw her face illuminated by the patrol car's departing lights. She wasn't embarrassed. She was calculating, and the look she gave me promised one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. If you've never lived under an HOA, let me explain what it's like. It's like paying extra money for permission to breathe, only with newsletters and fines attached. Brenda Wilson wasn't just the HOA president. She was the HOA, self-appointed queen of suburban order, ruler of mailbox fonts and lawn heights. The woman could weaponize a clipboard better than some people handle firearms. She'd moved into Willowbrook 5 years ago, according to neighborhood gossip. Real estate agent by trade, luxury car by obsession, and a smile so artificial it could have been 3D printed. She ran the neighborhood with the efficiency of a drill sergeant and the charm of a traffic ticket. I met her 2 weeks after I moved in. It was a Saturday evening. I was bleeding brake lines in the garage, music low, hands black with grease. Out of nowhere, I heard high heels clicking up my driveway. Excuse me, she said, holding a ruler like it was a badge. There's a noise ordinance after 6 p.m., no power tools. I wiped my hands on a rag. Actually, city code allows hobby work until 9. Want me to show you the section? Her smile froze. This kind of industrial activity affects property values. Industrial activity. Like I was running a car factory out of my garage instead of rebuilding a piece of American history. That was the start of it. First came the warnings, grass half an inch too high, trash bins visible from the street, unauthorized vehicle in the driveway. Every note signed Brenda Wilson, HOA president. It wasn't about rules. It was about control. Brenda didn't like things she couldn't manage, and I was something she couldn't. Still, I ignored it. I had my car, my tools, and the hum of the engine to drown out her voice. But Brenda was like rust. She spread slowly, quietly, until she found a weak spot, and that weak spot came 2 weeks later, at her monthly backyard pool party. Between the sound of clinking glasses and shallow laughter, she bragged to her guests about buying a classic Camaro from Phoenix for 45 grand. I'd been under the hood of my car at that exact moment. When I heard her say that, I remember dropping my wrench and thinking, there's no way. She can't mean my car, but she did, and that was when I realized Brenda wasn't just nosy. She was dangerous. After that night, things got quiet. Too quiet, no more ruler measurements. No more friendly reminders. For about a week, I almost believed she'd moved on. Then the letters started. The first one arrived, folded neatly in a plastic sleeve, taped to my door like a scarlet letter. Notice of covenant violation. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. It referred to my work van, a plain white Ford Transit with Rodriguez Family Auto painted on the side. My livelihood, $200 fine. 48 hours to comply. I stood there holding the paper, the smell of ink mixing with my morning coffee. She was escalating. The next day brought another letter. Driveway oil stains. I power washed every inch. The day after that, excessive automotive odors. Apparently, the scent of WD-40 was now a crime against the community. She'd found her weapon of choice, paperwork. At first, I tried to reason with her. Sent polite emails, attached city code references, even invited her to inspect the property herself. She never responded. Just more envelopes. It was death by documentation, each one a paper cut meant to drain me dry. The neighbors noticed, too. I caught glimpses of curtains shifting as I mowed my lawn. Whispers over fences. The mechanic versus the HOA president. Entertainment for the bored and bitter. But I didn't bite. I knew what she wanted, a reaction. Something she could twist into another complaint. Instead, I started documenting her. Every letter, every interaction, every petty infraction she claimed I'd committed. One evening, as I sat in my garage flipping through the growing stack of notices, I realized something. She wasn't just trying to punish me. She was trying to push me out. I looked at my car, my pride, my therapy, and thought about the 18 months of sweat that had brought it back to life. No, not again. Not after everything I'd already rebuilt. Brenda wanted a war of paper and patience. Fine. But this time, I'd fight back with something stronger than outrage. Proof real, undeniable proof. And when she slipped up, and she would, I'd be ready. When you've spent your life fixing engines, you learn patience. You can't rush precision. You diagnose, you observe, you wait for the exact moment to tighten the final bolt. That's how I decided to handle Brenda. No shouting. No door-to-door arguments. Just quiet work, this time on a different kind of machine, a plan. First step, surveillance. I installed 4 high-definition cameras around my property. 2 watching the driveway, 1 facing the garage, and 1 hidden near the mailbox. Each streamed directly to cloud storage, time-stamped and backed up. If she so much as sneezed in my direction, it'd be recorded in 4K. Next, documentation. I created a binder labeled Operation HOA. Every letter from her went inside plastic sleeves, dated, cross-referenced with city code, and photographed. Each fine, each accusation preserved like evidence in a museum of madness and research. Oh, I dove deep. City ordinances, HOA bylaws, property statutes. Turns out my so-called commercial vehicle violation was nonsense. The rule she cited hadn't even existed when I bought the van, which made me grandfathered in by law. Brenda was bluffing on borrowed authority. Night after closing the shop, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by coffee mugs and printouts. Somewhere between the noise ordinances and lawn regulations, a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't just self-defense anymore. It was chess. And I was finally learning the board. From my window, I could see Brenda's porch light glowing like a watchtower. She still did her evening patrols, phone in hand, documenting my every move. But now I smiled when I saw her silhouette, because for the first time, I wasn't the one being watched. She was, and she had no idea that every photo she snapped, every rule she twisted, every fake violation she filed, was tightening the trap I was building around her. I thought I was alone in this fight. Turns out I wasn't even close. It started with a knock on my door one evening just as I was reviewing camera footage. When I opened it, I found Tom from 2 houses down, the mailman with a perpetual sunburn and a kindness that didn't quite fit the neighborhood's plastic smiles. "Hey, Marcus," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mind if I come in? I think we need to talk about Brenda." That conversation changed everything. Tom had been cited for mailbox placement inconsistencies. A mailbox. Inconsistent by 2 inches. Then came Sarah, the accountant from across the street, fined for unauthorized flower colors. And Mike, a retired corporate lawyer, hit with penalties for leaving his trash can out 12 minutes past pickup time. Brenda hadn't just been policing me. She'd been running a one-woman dictatorship. We met that night in Tom's garage, a space that smelled like coffee, WD-40, and quiet rebellion. One by one, neighbors trickled in, each carrying their own stack of violation notices like battle scars. "This woman's made our lives miserable," Sarah said, flipping through her papers. She cited me for planting sunflowers. "Sunflowers," Mike chuckled dryly. "She's lucky I didn't bill her for emotional damages." That's when I realized something important. Individually, we were victims. But together we were evidence. So we started organizing. Tom handled communication. Sarah offered her accountant's precision. Mike volunteered his legal mind. We created a shared drive for documents, time-stamped every complaint, and cross-referenced the dates Brenda issued them. A pattern emerged. Every violation coincided with real estate listings nearby. Brenda's job as an agent suddenly looked a little too convenient. "She's targeting homeowners until they sell," Sarah said, connecting the dots. "Then she gets the listings." It all made sense. The harassment, the pressure, the false 911 call. Brenda wasn't just a busybody. She was running a business model. We decided to expose her, but carefully. No confrontations, no shouting matches. We'd use the same weapons she loved: paperwork, procedure, and patience. As the meeting ended, I looked around the room. People who'd barely spoken before were now allies, friends even. Brenda had tried to divide the neighborhood with fear. Instead, she'd built a resistance, and this time, the mechanic, the mailman, the accountant, and the lawyer weren't backing down. The neighborhood she controlled with rules was about to learn what happens when good people start writing their own. The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. At first, it was just about proving Brenda had overstepped her authority. But as Sarah went through old financial reports, her accountant instincts started to twitch. "Something's off," she murmured one night, squinting at a spreadsheet projected onto Tom's garage wall. "Look at this, $8,500 for landscaping improvements. No contractor name, no receipts, just a check signed by Brenda." Mike leaned forward, glasses low on his nose. "That's not sloppy bookkeeping. That's deliberate concealment." Over the next week, we pieced together years of HOA statements, expense records, and vendor payments. Brenda had hidden everything behind a fog of fake paperwork. But she'd made one fatal mistake: her ego. She liked signing things herself. That's how we found it. 3 businesses. B&B Property Solutions, Wilson and Associates, and Brenda's Best Gardens, all sharing the same address. Hers. Sarah dropped her pen. "She's been paying herself. Literally cutting checks from the HOA to her own fake companies." The room went silent. Even Tom, who never stopped fidgeting, froze. "Wait," I said slowly. "You're saying she's been stealing from everyone in the neighborhood?" Sarah nodded. "For years. We traced nearly $80,000 in fraudulent transactions, phony maintenance fees, consulting costs, even legal retainers. She'd been bleeding the community dry while terrorizing anyone who questioned her authority. The worst part? She wasn't even paying her own HOA dues. Mike found the court records online. Brenda Wilson, delinquent homeowner. Her house was in pre-foreclosure. That was when the puzzle finally clicked. The fines, the intimidation, the false 911 call, it wasn't just about control. It was desperation. She's broke, Mike said flatly. She's been using HOA money to fund her lifestyle and cover her debts. You were supposed to be her next payout. If she could have pushed you to sell, she'd list your property, collect the commission, and buy herself more time. I felt the air leave my lungs. Brenda hadn't just tried to ruin my life. She'd been running a criminal enterprise from behind her picket fence, and now we had the proof. Real names, fake companies, bank records, everything, for months. She'd used paperwork to control us. Now, our paperwork was going to end her. Brenda must have felt the shift before she ever saw the evidence, because the moment we went quiet, she went wild. At first, it was subtle. Her car started parking closer to my driveway, her phone camera flashing at my mailbox every morning like clockwork. Then came the notes, not official HOA letters this time, just anonymous printouts. Your kind doesn't belong here. That's when I knew she wasn't just unraveling, she was spiraling. We'd already handed everything over to our lawyer friend, Mike, who'd prepared the official complaint for the County Fraud Division. But before the investigation could even begin, Brenda made her biggest mistake yet. One morning, I found a trail of roofing nails scattered across my driveway, a neat little welcome mat for my tires. My cameras caught everything. 2 a.m. sharp, hoodie, gloves, the shape was unmistakable. Brenda walked like she was power walking through a sales meeting. Same posture, same quick, angry steps. When I showed the footage to Officer Rodriguez, the same man who'd responded to that first 911 call, he just sighed. Classic escalation, he said, snapping photos. Document everything. This kind of pattern usually ends with an arrest. And it did. 3 days later, Brenda filed another false police report, this time claiming I'd threatened her with a weapon. Only problem? I'd been at Tom's house during the incident, with 4 witnesses and 2 security cameras running. When the officers arrived, they didn't even bother to hide their frustration. Ma'am, Officer Morgan said flatly, this is your 3rd false report in 2 weeks. Keep this up, and you're the one facing charges. Her mask cracked. You don't understand, she screamed. He's trying to destroy everything I built. But she'd already done that herself. The final straw came a week later when she broke into the HOA management office at night. The cameras caught her feeding paper after paper into the shredder, frantic, sweating, looking over her shoulder like a trapped animal. When the silent alarm triggered, police found her surrounded by confetti, shredded evidence fluttering like snow around her. She looked up at the flashlight beams and said the last words she'd ever speak as HOA president. I was just trying to protect my community. The courthouse smelled like coffee, old wood, and justice. I'd spent months fighting a paper war against Brenda Wilson, and now, surrounded by half the neighborhood, I was finally going to watch the ending play out. Brenda sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed violently with her fake tan and bleached hair. She looked smaller now, deflated, like someone had let the air out of the person she pretended to be. Her lawyer, a weary public defender, shuffled papers that couldn't save her. Judge Hernandez read the charges slowly, each one a nail in the coffin Brenda had built for herself. Embezzlement, fraud, filing false police reports, harassment, property damage. Every word landed like a hammer strike. When the judge invited victims to speak, Tom stood first. His voice shook, but his message didn't. We're just regular people, Your Honor. We wanted peace. She took that from us, Sarah followed, holding up financial statements like holy texts. She stole our money, our time, and our trust. Then it was my turn. I stood, palms sweating, heart thudding against my ribs. This all started because I opened my garage, I said. Because I dared to exist where someone like Brenda thought I didn't belong. But what she really stole wasn't money or cars. It was our peace. Brenda wouldn't look at me. Not once. When it was over, Judge Hernandez leaned forward, eyes sharp. Ms. Wilson, you abused power, betrayed your neighbors, and weaponized authority. This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison, restitution of $112,000, and 5 years of probation. The gavel came down like thunder. The courtroom erupted in applause, 40 households clapping not out of cruelty, but relief. It sounded like exhaling after holding your breath for months. As they led Brenda away, she glanced at me one last time. No apology, just cold, quiet hate. But I didn't need her remorse. Because that day, justice didn't whisper. It roared. 6 months later, Willowbrook Estates didn't look the same, and that was the point. The neighborhood once ruled by fear and clipboard tyranny had finally started breathing again. The sound of kids laughing replaced the echo of Brenda's threats. Lawns still looked neat, but now because people wanted them to. Not because they were scared. Tom was elected the new HOA president. Sarah handled the books, and Mike became the board's legal watchdog. Meetings were open, transparent, even friendly. The new rule was simple: no more fear. Every month, restitution checks arrived from Brenda's case, small reminders that karma doesn't forget addresses. Most families used the money for repairs or vacations, but I used mine for something better: scholarships for young mechanics. Because if I'd learned one thing, it was that rebuilding, whether it's cars or communities, starts with teaching others how to do the work. The Camaro sat in my driveway, gleaming like redemption itself. Sometimes I'd catch a few neighbors admiring it, smiling instead of scowling. One evening, Sarah stopped by with coffee. "Funny," she said, nodding toward the car. "That thing caused so much chaos, and now it's kind of the symbol of peace here," I laughed. Guess it just needed the right driver. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, I looked down the street that had once felt hostile and saw a neighborhood reborn. Turns out, justice doesn't just punish the guilty, it rebuilds what they tried to destroy. They say every neighborhood has its stories. Ours just happened to end with handcuffs and headlines. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that justice has a long memory. And karma always keeps receipts. So while Willowbrook sleeps peacefully again, somewhere out there, another Karen is dialing 911 for the wrong reason. And next week, you'll hear about her. The one who tried to steal a veteran's service dog and learned what federal charges really mean. Because in this neighborhood, truth always wins and karma always parks in the right driveway.